Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mishnapad, Paramahansa, Padavijikacharya, Ashtotirtha to Sri Srimad's Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Padavijikacharya, Ashtotirtha to Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Kantaraj srimadbhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you, Balaram. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the Supermost Human Being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 8th day of May, 2020 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. Text number 17. Sangamakala viprashe Shiveneha sharirinam Durlabo munayo dadhyur Asangadhyam abhipsitam Sangama kala viprashe Shiveneha sharirinam Durlabho manayo dadhyur Asangadhyama bipsitam Sangamak kala viprashe Shiveneha sharirinam Durlabho manayo dadhyur Asangadhyama bipsitam Sangamak kala viprashe Shiveneha sharirinam Durlabho manayo dadhyur Asangadhyama bipsitam Sangamak kala viprashe Shiveneha sharirinam Durlabho manayo dadhyur Sangadhyama bipsitam Sangamak kala viprashe Shiveneha sharirinam Durlabho manayo dadhyur Asangadhyama bipsitam Sangamak kala viprashe Shiveneha sharirinam Durlabho manayo dadhyur Asangadhyama bipsitam Sangamaha association Kalu certainly Viprarishe O best of the Brahmins Shivena along with Lord Shiva Iha in this world Sharirinam those who are encaged in material bodies Durlabha very rare Muniyaha great sages Dadhyuhu engaged themselves in meditation Asangat being detached from anything else Yam unto whom Abhipsitam desiring Translation The great sage Vidura continued, O best of the Brahmins, it is very difficult for living entities encaged within this material body to have personal contact with Lord Shiva. Even great sages who have no material attachments do not contact him, despite their always being absorbed in meditation to attain his personal contact. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Since Lord Shiva does not incarnate himself unless there is some special reason, it is very difficult for an ordinary person to contact him. However, Lord Shiva does descend on a special occasion when he is ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this regard, it is stated in the Padma Puran that Lord Shiva appeared as a Brahmin in the age of Kali to preach the Mayavad philosophy, which is nothing but a type of Buddhist philosophy. Who is that Brahmin? Shankaracharya. It is stated in the Padma Puran, Mayavadam asatchastram pachannam baudam uchyate Mayavavahitang devi kalau brahmana murtina. Lord Shiva, speaking to Parvati Devi, foretold that he would spread the Mayavad philosophy in the guise of a sannyasi Brahman just to eradicate Buddhist philosophy. This sannyasi was Sripad Shankaracharya. In order to overcome the effects of Buddhist philosophy and spread Vedanta philosophy, Sripad Shankaracharya had to make some compromise with the Buddhist philosophy, and as such he preached the philosophy of monism, for it was required at that time. Otherwise there was no need for his preaching Mayavad philosophy. At the present moment, there is no need for Mayavad philosophy or Buddhist philosophy, and Lord Chaitanya rejected both of them. This Krishna consciousness movement is spreading the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya and rejecting the philosophy of both classes of Mayavadi. Strictly speaking, both Buddhist philosophy and Shankara's philosophy are but different types of Mayavad dealing on the platform of material existence. Neither of these philosophies has spiritual significance. There is spiritual significance only after one accepts the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, which culminates in surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, people worship Lord Shiva for some material benefit, and although they cannot see him personally, they derive great material profit by worshipping him. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is filled with wonderful personalities, great personalities, spiritual, some of them jivas, some of them not jivas, like Lord Shiva. He's not a jiva, he's not Krishna, he's in between. And if we receive the Bhagavatam in the proper mood, we can feel that we're getting the air association. There's one nice purport in the first canto where Prabhupada and Narada Muni is speaking. I think he's speaking to Pariksit, describing his history, his own history. And Prabhupada says, something like, we thank Narada Muni for nicely appearing in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is one of the great treasures of Bhagavatam, is that we get a chance to associate with Srila Prabhupada, who wrote, translated, and wrote these purports, and with all the fabulous personalities, up and including Lord Krishna, who appear in the pages of Bhagavatam. So now we're starting a whole new chapter here. We went through all these descriptions of Maharaj Prithu. There's another great personality. At the end of the whole section, you read the benefits of even reciting it one time. It's wonderful benefits. So this is this story of King Prachanabarhi, who was a great Prajapati and really liked performing sacrifices, heavenly sacrifices. And Narada Muni is going to come and preach to him. And now he's describing his strategy for continuing the population of the universe. And he's sending his 10 exalted sons, the Prachetas, to perform severe austerity so they become qualified to produce wonderful offspring. And along the way, they meet Lord Shiva. That's not an accident either. As Prabhupada mentions, it's very rare to see him. It says right in the verse here. And so Shiva is appearing here not in his usual way. In other words, you remember the pastime of Vrikasura. Vrikasura was an asura. He was asura. He was a demon, and he knew how Shiva was very apt to give one material benefits. So he wanted. Vrika means one who cuts. So he became famous for offering sections of his own body into the fire in order to pray to get the darshan of Shiva. He didn't want the benediction only. He wanted the darshan, personal darshan. So Shiva didn't want to go. He's about ready to cut his own head off to offer it in. And finally Shiva, out of mercy, says, "Okay, I'll come and stop it." And what do you want? What do you want? So he wanted the most horrible benediction. What was it, Vijay? Whoever's head he touched would explode, basically. Yeah, in other words, kill anyone by just touching their head. So Shiva, he's Asutosh, okay, get rid of this guy. And then he wanted to test it on Shiva. So Shiva, now what have I done? So he started running, going, because it was an infallible benediction. Goes all the way up to Vaikuntha. And you get the sense that Vikasra, he's following, and he gets to Vaikuntha, he's really out of breath, right? He's tired. Because then Vishnu, he disguises himself as a little brahmachari. Take it easy, the body is so important. He's praising his body, and demons love that. So okay, what's going on? And he explains that he's going after Shiva. He gave me this benediction. Are you kidding? Everyone knows that Shiva, his benedictions are, hollow. They're just, what would you say, Potemkin village, benedictions. You never heard that? Anyway, they look good, but they're not really real. So Vishnu, with his skilled speaking, because he has this ability to convince anyone, Krishna has that quality. He convinced this demon that it was very doubtful that the benediction was any good. And, we can prove it, just touch your own head, you'll see nothing happens. And this foolish demon did that and exploded his head, and that's how he got rid of Prakasha. But in this case, Shiva voluntarily he saw the exalted nature of these prachetas, and he wanted them to learn his song. And because they were going to perform severe austerities, and it turns out the austerities is going underwater for how many thousands of years? 10,000 years, chanting this song of Shiva. So I remember working on this part of the Bhagavatam. This is one of the first books I proofread. At the end of the third canto, and the whole Kapila Dev teachings was fabulous. And then we went through the earlier part as we've gone, and now we're coming to this. And I remember, as we'll read on, it really praises this song. This is the greatest prayer, it's wonderful things. Oh, I got to memorize. I started memorizing it. One of the first things I memorized, I got about 6 or 7 verses. It's long. So here in this verse, the point that Prabhupada makes, that he emphasizes, is how Lord Shiva was ordered by Krishna to go down and preach Mayavad philosophy in order to infuse atheism into people. And if you just read it without understanding the context, so why would Krishna do that? That he empowers someone to preach atheism, take them far away from me, rather. And for that we have to go back to the whole history that Prabhupada taught us of how the Vedas had become corrupt in the Kali Yuga. Not the Vedas didn't become corrupt, but people's reading of them and their misuse of them. There's some facility in the Vedas for killing old cows, giving them new bodies. That's part of it. And they focused on that one point, and they started killing cows, thinking that they were following on the basis of the Vedas. So Buddha was a reaction to that, Buddhism. He, with preaching, probably emphasizes the ahimsa factor. That's a big part of it. But he did it, he completely ignored the Vedas. He rejected the Vedic knowledge. And he spread this Buddhism, and it became very prominent in India. So the Vedas were becoming neglected, or people weren't following. They were following this Buddhism. And Krishna knew that for any hope, people had to get back under the authority of the Vedas. But the Vedas were now thought to be the source of this, philosophy of cow killing. So there was a whole problem. So this covered Buddhism, Mayavad, you notice how in the prayer, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachadeshataranam. This is a big deal. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta was fighting that in India, and historically Ramanuja, Madhvacharya, all the great acharyas, they did a big battle with the Mayavadis, and they always won, these great preachers. But it's still there, and it's this impersonalism and voidism. So what is why isn't it necessary now to have the Mayavad philosophy? Probably it's unnecessary now. Because the Buddhists have left India, basically. They're not very prominent. They went east, and they became prominent in Japan and China and other places. But the Vedas have not yet been properly reestablished as the full guide. So that the real philosophy of the Vedas, as Krishna teaches in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaisya sarva ahame viveja vedanta krit veda vedeva chaham. That of all of the Vedas teach, not just the Vedas, but Prabhupada gave us this word Vedic literature, which includes the 4 Vedas and the Puranas and the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and the Vedanta Sutra. And he expanded any literature which follows in the line of that, such as, of course, the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the books we have. So that was Prabhupada's mission. That was Lord Chaitanya's mission, to establish the Bhagavatam, the authority of the Bhagavatam, which really ends with the holy name, with Sankirtan. Nama Sankirtan Yasa Sarva Papa Manashayai Pranamo Dukkha Shamanas Tandamami Harimbiyam. That's the last verse of the Bhagavatam. And throughout the Bhagavatam, the chanting of the name is emphasized. And that is especially this age, it's the Yuga Dharma, and the Yuga Avatar preaches that, Lord Chaitanya. So that's the big battle, is to combat this, gross atheism, and its underlying philosophical underpinning, which includes Mayavad and also Buddhism. So this is not, it's a little puzzling. why Shiva would be assigned this thankless task, of misinterpreting the Vedanta Sutra and making that prominent. But at the time, this was like, 600 AD? It was like quite a few centuries before Lord Chaitanya. To attract people back to the Vedas who are already leaning toward Buddhism on the basis of discovered Buddhism. So what's the difference? The basic difference is the Buddhists, they reject the Vedas, and they say ultimately everything, this is high Buddhism, so-called high Buddhism, is everything is ultimately void. I remember I had a run-in with that. I don't know if anyone has ever studied that kind of thing. I remember when I was kind of going here and there and checking out different things. I bought this book on Milarepa. Milarepa was a very advanced Buddhist. I don't know what years, probably the first 1,000 years of Christ. He was way back then. But I remember reading about it, about this thing of voidism, and he was very advanced, and he turned green because he was so austere. He just ate these nettles, these green nettles, so there was a word, one of his nicknames. And he had some powers. He had some mystic powers. He produced rain one time when there was a drought and this and that, So, at the time, this is the late 60s, early 70s, what happened is the Chinese invaded Tibet, and they took over Tibet, and that's, the Dalai Lama left, and some of the other lamas, the leaders, they were able to escape China, and what was then called China. And they came to India. And I forget his name, and if I knew it, I probably wouldn't say it anyway. But he was one of the ones who was quite a bit younger than the Dalai Lama. And he was a leader amongst the Tibetan priests there, and he took refuge in India. And at that time, there was all of this acid being dropped and everything, late 60s. And it was, I think, Baba Ram Das who went over there and found this city where they were in eastern India, where they were gathering. I forget the name of it now. And he went over and he found him and he established a relation and brought him over to Colorado. I think Boulder was one of the big place where they started. And this is where Buddhism began to be supported by people like Baba Ram Das and others, And so he had a following amongst Americans, Zen Buddhism. To this day, I think you find a lot of these Zen Buddhist places. So I was going around. He came to New York, and he already had followers. He had written some books. Baba Ram Das was promoting him, and he was there at this meeting. I forget where it was, but it was a hall, kind of small. And he was speaking. He had a little stage, maybe this high, and he was sitting on there in a chair. I forget what he was saying. But I was kind of checking him out and also checking out the followers, and because they want to know what are they into. And I swear, I saw this like blank kind of void look in their face. I didn't even know what was going on, but this was the mood, And he was taking a swig of whiskey every so often. I swear, he was famous for that. And Baba Ram Das was there, for inspiration. Yeah, it's loosen whatever. And so Baba Ram Das was there. I think I had a few words with him. I met him, So. But it didn't attract me, In other words, I could have got involved in that, And there was a bunch of other things that I won't mention that I almost. Ramakrishna was a big one. I got very much involved with them. And Nikalananda had translated the Sharirika Bhasha into English, and I bought that book, but I never opened it. I never read it. I would say my Hare Krishna before I got. Because, Lord Chaitanya says, Mayavada Bhasha Shunlai Hoi Sarvanash. If you hear or read the Mayavadi Bhasha, you're finished. Anyway, the battle is still going on. And when you think about it, these are all very much related. Out-and-out atheism and Mayavad philosophy and Buddhism. The basic principle is an aversion to surrender to God. Mayavadis want to be God in the form of Brahman. They said we're chip off the old block. That's how we came here. God gets a little bit of the Brahman gets covered by Maya, and that's who we are. So the cure is knowledge, Gyan. Once we know this, we can stop getting allured allured by the material energy, and will merge back into Brahman and be blissful forever. No more birth and death. It's like, but Prabhupada, it's really nice purport in 4.10 Bhagavad Gita, where it's Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha, Manmaya Mama Pashadami. Krishna is describing how many souls in the path have become purified by giving up attachment, fear, and anger, and practicing austerities and worshipping me. And they've attained pure love for me. This is in the 4th chapter. So, but that phrase, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha, which appears once or twice other in the Gita, freedom from attachment, fear, and anger. Raga, Bhaya, and Krodha. So, following Baladev, I believe, I never checked, but it's a very systematic purport. He goes and shows how each one of those is the blockage for a certain class of people to surrender to Krishna. So Raga is the most common one. The ordinary materialists, they're too much absorbed in trying to enjoy and trying to avoid the suffering that comes with trying to enjoy material activity, to even consider spiritual life. And that's a huge percentage of people. Then there's some who, the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, who are afraid, Bhaya. They're afraid of being persons again. The idea is that personhood involves this body, senses and activities and all of these different relations. That's personhood. And so they think that to avoid personhood, they have to avoid the pain, they have to avoid personhood because they identify that with the material body. And so therefore, they want to stop all thought and all activity and senses and go into the white light. No variety, no variegatedness. That's what nirvishesha means. And that attempt, you can see how difficult it is. Because they know, as we know, this is the basic principle of Vedic knowledge, right in the Bhagavad Gita in many places, is that the attachment you develop for sense gratification and engaging it, this is the source of your misery. It's right there in the 5th chapter. The enjoyment, yehi sangsvarjaja bhoga, dukkha yonai evate. Adyanta bandhan kote anateju ramate buddha. There's the word Buddha. Intelligent that don't take part in the sense pleasures, which are the very source of your misery. And they have a beginning and an end. They're temporary. So, therefore, the Mayavadis conflate the activities of the senses that devotees perform, which sometimes can look like sense gratification. I remember when I first visited the temple in Brooklyn, my first visit. It was a Sunday. I had a friend who knew about the temple, and we drove down. It was a Sunday feast, and there was a big kirtan. Now I was, leaning toward, because I was involved with the Ramakrishna mission, toward meditation, quiet meditation. I wasn't an impersonalist, but I was the whole thing. And that loud kirtan, it was just too much. And all of the deities and the incense and everything. And then there were all these young guys in orange walking by with these huge plates of prasadam, which I couldn't eat anything of because I was eating only raw food and drinking juices, So it was all a bit much, And so I sat down to the feast and said, I can't eat that, can't eat that, can't eat that. I eventually had some halva, and that was the end. I told the story how, once you're into raw food, and then you have some really nice prepared hot halva, with nuts and fruit. Anyway, that really helped me become a devotee. But all of the variety and there's so much sensual activity or sense activity in Krishna consciousness. The mind and the senses are filled with all these details. That it's anathema for those who are trying to void the activity of senses through repression. The famous verse, Yen ye vindaksha vimukta maninas tvayasta bhavad avishuddha buddhiya ura kuchena. Thank you. This verse Prabhupada would always quote about the Mayavadis. It's there, the demigods offering prayers to Krishna in the womb. And this is the most famous of those prayers. No, I don't. Vimukta maninas. You can get that. So he says, besides the devotees, they've been praising the devotees, the Vaishnava. It says, there are others. Oh, lotus-eyed Lord. Yen ye adabindaksha Vimukta maninas. Prabhupada would always focus on that. They think they're liberated. They're not really liberated, but they have the illusion of being liberated. Tvayashtabhavat avishuddha buddhiya. But they are averse to serving you, and therefore their intelligence is still impure. Avishuddha buddhiya. Now, a very few aruha kritrena. The very word kritrena, a lot of times Sanskrit has onomatopoeias. You know what an onomatopoeia is? A word that means what it sounds like. Many in English, splash, tinkle, You don't really have to know the meaning. You can just listen to the sound. Crush. Anyway. So this kritrena, even we had Lord Nishenga's appearance day, his mula syllable, what do they call it? Sacred, mantra. Kshom. It's he's tearing apart Hiranyakashipu with that syllable, kshom. For the other deities, I hope I'm not revealing secret information. If you do some deity worship, the syllable for Krishna, Kleem, right? For Radharani, Shreem. Very sweet, what I'm saying? Anyway, so Ahura Kritrena, they rise up, the very few, through severe austerities to Parampadam. That's more or less Brahmabhuta. Parampadam means the supreme situation. They're not back home, back to God. They don't want that. But they're able to overcome the pushings of the senses and the mind through sheer force of will and all of that austerity of, spending all day studying Vedanta Sutra. So they're there, parampadam. But then patantyadho, they fall down again. Patantyadho anadvita yushmarangre, because they're averse to worshipping your lotus feet. So this is the nature of the Mayavad, is that their very goal is anathema. Anathema is something you hate, which you regard as hell. You know that verse. Kayavalyam nadakayate. This is a great verse in the Chaitanya Chandramrita. Prabodhananda Saraswati, he's describing how the state of mind of those who've been empowered by the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya, who've received his mercy. And he goes through different categories of persons who the devotees reject that principle. So the first one is this Kaivalyam Nadakayate Judashapur Akasha Pushpayate. Kaivalyam is merging into the oneness of Brahman and losing one's individuality and personality. How do devotees feel? Nadakayate, which means like hell. Yeah, Nadaka is hell. Tridashapur Akasha Pushpayate. Now Tridashapur refers to, Tridasha is 30, but it also means like 30 million. This is the different heavenly planets, some of which we know about, which, are very much alluring for those who are suffering in this material world and want to do the karma kanda thing and going. So for devotees, it's just Akasha Pushpa. It's no more significant than sky flowers. Just imagination. You wouldn't strive for something like that. Then you go with the yogis. So you got the karma kandis, you got the mayavadis, and now you got the yogis who want to control the senses and get siddhis. So he says, Durdan dendri yakara sarpa patali prodkata dangstrayate. You've heard that line? Durdan dendriya. Very difficult to control senses, which are just like snakes with poisoned fangs that'll bite you. It's kind of a metaphor for what Krishna describes in the Gita. One sense upon which the mind focuses, like a wind that'll take your mind away, like the boat on the water. So in this case, it'll bite you and ruin your consciousness. Any of the senses you get involved with material things. So it's like the same senses are there. You're using them in Krishna's service, but they can't bite you. It's like they've had their fangs removed, so they can't really hurt you. And as far as the demigods, well, you honor them, you show them respect. But as far as worship, they're no more significant for that purpose than insects. He described this as classic Prabodhananda. So the Mayavadis really, there's so many. I was just reading by Krishna's arrangement the conversion of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in chapter 6 of the Madhya Lila. It's really sweet, and there's a lot of good arguments in there. I mean, why did Prabhupada give us Adi 7 first? That was the first chapter, published as a separate book of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I don't know if you know that. It came out in 73, I believe. And there's several reasons, I believe. One is that
it gives a very systematic refutation of Mayavad. There's these long purports based on Bhaktisiddhanta's commentary. As, you know, if you study the Chaitanya Bhagavat we have with his commentary, have you ever seen that? When there's a discussion of Mayavad, he has these long purports. He quotes like all different kinds of Upanishads and things, because that was a major battle he was doing. It's still going. So, and also it talks in the first part about the Panchatattva. This is the chapter describing the Panchatattva. And how the Panchatattva broke open the storehouse of love of God, and they spread it everywhere. You know, it was very pertinent and enlivening for the devotees, and you know, joining the movement. It said, "Oh, we're part of this whole. That's here, right? We're doing just chanting Hare Krishna in the street, giving it to everybody." So that has systematic, but it's really involved. And in Madhya 6, there's not such long purports, but the actual verses that Lord Chaitanya is, you know, doing to refute the Mayavad is very fascinating and interesting. This one comes in Mayavadam Shastram, that's there in the purport. So we should know these things, because whereas in the West we don't, very rarely do we encounter dyed-in-the-wool Orthodox Mayavadi. I think there was one here once right? Bhaktivinoda Maharaj got into it with it. But you know, America is so ignorant that they're just in the lower modes of nature. That philosophy isn't there, but it's there, and we should see it. What's great about it is, you know, Sarvabhauma, he's such a great scholar. You know, I mean, he was he was the leading scholar in Puri, and he was known for being a great logician, you know, like that. And of course, he has a discussion with Lord Chaitanya. He tries to teach him, you know, Vedanta, and then Lord Chaitanya starts speaking. So, and Sarvabhauma, if you study the Prajavali, there's a bunch of verses in there by him, and every one of them is great. So, since we're studying Mayavad or this purport, one of my favorites is in the Prajavali, and he was a great Sanskritist. You know, when he finally got the revelation, and he was, you know, started haripilating and crying in ecstasy, his love of God, he was completely converted. Lord Chaitanya revealed to him, I think first a Narayan form, but it wasn't a 6-arm form later. But Radha Krishna is a Krishna form, you know, yeah. And so he composed 100 verses off the bat. Can you imagine? For us to compose one verse in English takes me about a week. You know, write it, then rewrite it. You know, study the rhyming dictionary. 100 verses. Now, one of them, that's called the Sushloka Shataka. That's one of the names for it. You know, 100 wonderful verses. I memorized a few of those years and years ago, but completely forgot about it. But recently I encountered it again, and I'll share it to you. You can see the wonderful Sanskrit skill he has, and it's all now for, you know, glorifying Krishna. Great. And Lord Chaitanya, Hare Krishna Rama Nama Gana Dana Karinim Shoka Moha Loba Tapa Sarva Vigna Nashinim Padapadma Lubna Bhakta Vrinda Bhakti Dahinim Gaudamotam Ashanami Nama Sutta Dharinim. Every line rhymes, you know, in that wonderful meter. So he's saying there, the Hare Krishna, Rama, Nama, Gana, the song composed of the names Hare Krishna and Rama. Hare Krishna, Rama, Nama, Gana, Dana Karanim. He made a gift of it. He's talking about Lord Chaitanya. He made a gift of it and giving it out to everybody. The Mo Mahavadanyaya. And those who take that gift, Shoka, Moha, Loba, Tapa, Sarva Vignanashinim. They have destroyed all of the vigna. Vigna are the suffering things that make you suffer in this world. Beginning with shoka and lamentation, moha, illusion, greed, all suffering. Tapa, sarva, vigna, nashinim. And for those devotees who are very eager for the service of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, pada padma lubna bhakta vrinda bhakti dayanim. He bestows the highest levels of prema bhakti. And then at the end he says, Gaudamotam ashanami nama sutta dharanim. I very quickly and enthusiastically glorify this golden avatar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is sitting in a secluded place, chanting rounds on a knotted string. Nama Sutta Dharinim. That's how he would chant rounds. And then there's one more, which I put a poem to. This is in the Pajavali. It's a very unusual verse. It's the easiest meter you'll ever find. Every syllable is long. bar ha pidam mao lao bimrud vangsi naran atan van nana kalpa shri sampanno gopasri samvita netranandam kurvan Krishna tvangtvadiksar vikshetha sarve kamak sampadyerat asmakam vidyasina. Decked with crown of peacock plumes and chanting songs with flute you sing, wearing lovely ornaments while standing in the gopi's ring. Dear most Krishna, eyes delight, if you will kindly glance our way, all our heart's desires will be fulfilled on this most blessed day. So that's what the Mayavadi. Those one of the 100? No. Those are separate. He wrote those separate and he put on a palm leaf. You remember those? And he sent it to Lord Chaitanya, and it was at Govinda. One of the servants intercepted him and wrote him on the wall because they glorify him as Vishnu, as God. And he opened the door. Boy, I hope we can close it. And so, Vairagya Vidya, that's probably the most famous one. We can all chant together. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshatameka Purushak Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari Kripambudiyas Tamaham Papadye. I take shelter of the Lord's Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshatameka Purushak. That same ancient person, Krishna, has now appeared taking the form of Shri Krishna Chaitanya in order to preach devotion to himself, characterized by Vairagya and Vidya, detachment and knowledge. Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartam Eka, that one person, Eka Purushapana, Shri Krishna Sharidari, he's an ocean of compassion and mercy. I take full shelter of him. Wonderful. So, it is now 8:30. Let me read the verse translation again. Haribol, Janardhan. The great sage Vidura continued, O best of the Brahmins, it is very difficult for living entities encaged within this material body to have personal contact with Lord Shiva. Even great sages who have no material attachments do not contact him, despite their always being absorbed in meditation to attain his personal contact. Any questions or comments?
I was wondering, what do you say if it seems to most people it would be reasonable to say that Krishna consciousness is the best method of achieving love of God, and it's the best method of self-realization, it's the topmost philosophy. And so if you have a better one, present it to me and I'll surrender to it. Like that's something like, well, that would be a very reasonable, thing to say. But then in one sense we wouldn't say that, because we might say that, but then say, oh, but Mayavad philosophy, no, we won't, because there's the verse you recited that, but we won't read Mayavad philosophy because then we're doomed. If we read Mayavad philosophy, then we're doomed. So it might seem that it's just, we're willing to hear about, the lower philosophy. Like, we're willing to hear about Christianity and kind of easy, cheaper, whatever we think, less sophisticated philosophies. But something like Mayavad, no, we won't listen to it because it's very sophisticated. It will convince us.
That's an interesting question. Thank you. When you listen to Prabhupada's, because he had conversations with all kinds of people, priests and everything, he would never listen to those philosophies for very long without responding. There's a whole philosophy book. There's a dialectic spiritualism. It's supposed to be dialectical, but I don't think. And there's these discussions. Then they present high points of the philosophy. They don't present it completely. And Prabhupada answers, It's not that he's sitting there for an hour just listening to philosophies. He's responding to the points as they come up. And that we do for the Mayavadis all the time. That's not the problem is listening and studying and getting affected by it. That's what Lord Chaitanya is talking about. It's not that if you hear one Mayavadi say a couple of words of philosophy, you're finished. We're not going to sit there and listen to any other philosophy. We're always listening for one or 2 points and then respond, 1 or 2 points and respond. And that's not going to, that doesn't pollute you. That strengthens you.
What if someone says that that's a double standard, because we'll say that it's not enough just to, like, hear Hare Krishna, even chant it, but you have to, like, open yourself up to it. You can't just, like, I'll sit in the back of the kirtan like this, or I'll listen to the class, but I'll just be, like, trying to fault find the speaker or something. Then therefore it's not submissive or reception, therefore it won't get through to you. And so if someone says, well, the Mayavad philosophy is brilliant, it's genius, it's the topmost thing, but if you're going to pull yourself off to it, then there's no hope for you. But it's only because you aren't open-minded enough. Yeah, it's submissive or reception, then you would be
you don't have to, that's what chapter 6 is for. You can read, like, the topmost Mayavadi, receiving the topmost representative, if you want to call him that, of the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, namely Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And you can, see how where the deficiencies in Mayavad philosophy are. It's a fact. In one sense, you're right. Devotees are not open-minded and willing to hear everything, because generally speaking, we're not on the Uttama Adhikari platform, and we can be swayed. There's something, but one of the strongest points of faith that underlies your faith, so that you can't be swayed, is first of all to hear about the levels of happiness and bliss. There's two things. One is freedom from pain, and the other is enjoyment. Right, and that's going on everywhere. Every species, they're trying to do that. That's the standard thing. Everyone's trying to increase their happiness and decrease their bliss, their unhappiness. So, where is the activity in human life? Because the lower species don't have any philosophy, that produces the kind of happiness and bliss you find in Krishna consciousness and the eradication of misery. We just heard about Prahlad. We just went through, the Shringa's appearance day. So here was his very name. Of course, Prahlad, he gave him that name because he thought it would give him pleasure. But actually, it means that he's full of the greatest ladani. And he couldn't be, there was no suffering, even though he's being attacked and going through things that we would be screaming and yelling about. So that's just one example. So the standard of happiness, and this is very much in Sarvabhauma's writings, he writes this one verse, I was like an oil cake that all the oil has been taken from. I was so dried out, and now I've experienced Krishna consciousness. People my friends may insult me. They may say, "Who cares?" I'm going to roll around on the ground. And in other words, here's a perfect example. He was dyed-in-the-wool Mayavadi, and he was convinced, because he was experiencing whatever benefits it can give. But it became like straw. It was so much so that he didn't even want to hear the word mukti anymore. The story where he changed the verse. Mukti pade, he wanted to make bhakti pade. And he insisted, even though Lord Chaitanya said, "You can't do that." And I insisted, and Lord Chaitanya laughed, gave him a big hug. The idea is that when you impartially look at the standard of realization and experience of the devotees compared to that of the Mayavadis, they themselves always give up. I mean, the big thing was converting Sarvabhauma was huge, but Prakashananda Saraswati, right in the middle of Benares, with his who knows how many followers, thousands and thousands of followers, and they all gave it up, as a straw in the street. Oh boy, we've been misled. The thing is, there's a whole phenomenon psychologically. When you're raised in something and when you're convinced of it and you live it, it's very difficult to give it up, because you feel that you're losing your identity, yourself, whatever. It's a whole thing, and so many people they're into that. So but Krishna consciousness is so all attractive. I mean, Prabhupada, revolutionized with the prasadam weapon. So many people just came, they wanted to taste the prasadam, and they're tasting Krishna. While they're tasting the prasadam, the idea is devotees they'll be associated with devotees. Devotees will be attracted because they're Krishna conscious, and people will be interested enough to chant the name, read the books. Once they're ready to try the chanting, then you become curious about what's behind this. I'm experiencing something. You read the book, and then you get, your intelligence becomes engaged. That has to be, that opening has to be there. Otherwise, it's very difficult. So that's the idea is that, there are all of these other philosophies, and they have all their arguments and their books and the libraries and the adherents and the elders and everything else. But when you take it apart and you really analyze it, I just sent. It's interesting. I can send this. One of the big problems of the religions that don't believe in reincarnation, which is pretty much the Western religion, is theodicy. Is the idea of, well, how could bad things happen to good people? Why would a merciful, all-powerful God allow my child to die or experience this horrible disease? And this review, did you read Anandamaharaj's article also? You haven't looked at it. So way back, I reread this. I was working on the magazine at that time, and I remember now editing, didn't require much, Rabindra Swarup's review of this book, or more than a review of the book, but the whole phenomenon of this rabbi who confronted it. His own child had some disease, came down with some disease. And in the congregation, you inevitably find people that said, I've been going to temple. They're Jews at the temple every year, and I do everything right. And now this happens, some disaster happens. Why? Why would God allow that? And there's no answer, unless you understand that there's life before birth, and life after death. But the big thing is life before birth, because everyone thinks it's life after death. We're going to hell or we're going to the other place, but we have eternal. Then you can't. It doesn't compute. So how do you account for all that? How do you account? How can there be a merciful God, or unless you accept the Vaishnava philosophy, that this is a place of reformation. This is not the home that God has given us to enjoy, and you'll be dominion and all that stuff, and you forget it. It's a prison, disguised as in some cases as a place of enjoyment.
Well, they say that he created everything, but he doesn't have control.
Doesn't have control. Yeah, right. So it's Harold Kushner, believe it or not, Harry Kushner. I'm sorry? Okay. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So one person said, Potemkin village, nice comparison. Had to look it up though. And Tapas says, Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranam, what is the basic difference between a Buddhist and Mayavadi? If Buddhist and Mayavad are the same, then why Lord Shiva needed to teach Mayavad to drive away Buddhists?
Okay. Yeah, we didn't get to that. Buddhists and Mayavad are not identical. Probably the Buddhists believe that in the ultimate this high Buddhism, philosophy is and ultimately there's nothing, is that void, and you get nirvana by just stopping all of this, because having a body and living this means that you're going to suffer birth, old age, disease, and death. Mayavad doesn't believe that it's ultimately nothing. They believe that the reality, there's a truth, and it's Brahman. That's the ultimate reality. And Krishna is derived from all of the details, the form, and the Leela is all derived from Brahman. But the ultimate thing is Gyan, knowledge of this, and merging into this Brahman, regaining our state as Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. But not Para Brahman. That's the whole idea. So, now what was the second part?
If they're the same, then why does Shiva have to come to drive away the Buddhist?
Yeah, well, they're not the same. The whole idea is to reestablish the authority of the Vedas. You see, Vedanta Sutra is the essence of the Vedic knowledge, and so the Buddhists rejected the Vedas because it was being used for cow slaughter. So you have to reestablish the authority of the Vedas, and therefore it's a similar philosophy and would appeal to Buddhist tendencies, because it also ends in nothing, more or less, or at least no thought. But it's based on the Vedas. The essence of the Vedas, Vedanta. So it was a gateway to reestablish the authority of the Vedas amongst all of these Indians who were becoming attracted to Buddhism, because at least it was ahimsa. So that was a step up, the corruption of the karmakanda into just exclusive cow slaughter. So therefore, at that point, it was better for them to stop killing cows and go to Buddhism. But then when without the Vedas, there's no hope of really advancing. And so he had to reestablish the authority of the Vedas on the basis of Vedanta Sutra, which was misinterpreted to sound like Buddhism. It was like a bridge, you know. And then you had to have all the Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, and Bhaktisiddhanta and all modern refute the misinterpretation of the Vedanta, reestablish that it's Bhakti Vedanta, that the end of Vedanta is Bhakti. And Vedanta, Sutra is ultimately a Bhakti literature. And the whole point is that, well, okay, it needs explanation because it's just sutras, aphorism. Therefore we have Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is a natural comedy. Bring it all the way back home to pure Bhakti. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
I'll just announce, just because I said I would. The last comment was that someone says, in 1969, 1970, a few of us Buffalo area seekers drove to Connecticut to meet Baba Ram Das, known for Be Here Now philosophy. No lasting impressions from such darshan. However, one seeker became Romapad Swami.
Ah, there you go.
Hare
Krishna. Yeah, that was amazing, that Brooklyn, that Buffalo. So many came out of Buffalo. There's a good dozen. Kushakrata also. Lakshmi Moni, Satyanarayan, Trivikram Swami, Bhagavan, others.